step back a little bit, because yesterday someone pointed out that what we hadn't touched on was governance analysis. So I'm going to give a short presentation on that, and then we'll go into the TDA-SAF process of planning, which will hopefully inform you a little bit more for this afternoon. Okay, so governance analysis. So, what is governance? What is governance analysis? A process of carrying out governance analysis. Something about governance analysis for LMEs, and a little bit of advice in the field. So, yesterday we talked about thematic reports. Maybe it was the day before. It might be the day before we talked about thematic reports. And we said that there could be specific reports on the transboundary problems, and they could be around things like biodiversity or fisheries or pollution or water use or whatever. And we also said that there could be more specific reports on broader studies, for example, climate change, gender, causal chain analysis, stakeholder analysis, and governance analysis. I don't have time to talk to you about what could be about stakeholder analysis. You know, we could spend a week talking about stakeholder analysis. It's not, wouldn't be useful. You can hire in somebody that has expertise in stakeholders, engagement analysis, etc. Likewise with gender analysis, for example, if that was appropriate. And in a way, it's the same for governance analysis. Governance analysis is a whole other area of expertise and knowledge that's required in this project. And I would suggest that probably there's very few people in this room that will want to undertake a governance analysis. It's quite a specialised piece of work. You need somebody that has legal, institutional, political background that understands how to take this forward. But with that in mind, I will just give a short presentation on governance. So what is governance? Governance means the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. The challenge for all societies is to create a system of governance that promotes, supports and sustains human development, especially for the poorest and most marginal. That's the challenge, quite often not met. There are essentially three components of governance. There are different models of looking at governance. There are many different models that talk around governance. I'm just looking at one particular model here that states that governance can be broken down into three key mechanisms. One is political. One is about decision making to formulate policy and regulation. That's at the political level. Another key mechanism in governance is economic, and that's decision-making processes that affect a country's economic activities. And a third key mechanism in governance is civil society, and the cooperation among individuals and between groups of individuals, e.g. NGOs, special interest groups, and civil society in general. So there are three key mechanisms that can make up governance. There are other models that say that wouldn't include this in it. It was to have political, legal, civil society. But I'm just presenting this model. And I think this model has come out of an LME document on governance that we provided. So what's governance analysis then? So governance is about how governments govern, and can be broken down into those three areas. What exactly is governance analysis? Governance analysis should examine key aspects of the processes of governance, political, economic, civil society, those three branches. But in particular, and this is what often doesn't happen, it should focus on the dynamics of these relationships. how do these three things interact with each other? And what are the dynamics within each of those three pillars of governance? And I would say generally, certainly in the TDA-SAT process, that doesn't get done very well. It's quite easy to analyse governance in terms of laws, regulations, enforcement, etc. And it ends up just being a list. These are the laws for Peru, these are the laws for Chile, these are the regulations, this is how it's enforced. That gives you nothing more than a list. What is important is to be able to understand the dynamics of the relationship. And that's why you need an expert for it, in my opinion. I've seen people that have been hired in because someone feels they can do it and there's not enough time or resources. So someone's hired in and you end up with this listing rather than a real understanding of the dynamics. There's so in terms of governance analysis, there's no Greek blueprint for governance analysis in this TDA-SAT process. It's not as if I can say, okay, this is how you do it, because that hasn't really been developed. We tried to develop that about 7 or 8 years ago, but it wasn't a very good approach. So, as I said, this is about hiring and expertise to do this. Types of governance analysis used always need to reflect the cultural, political and social structure of the countries. And it's very different between different water systems. What's appropriate for a river basin is not going to be appropriate for an LME. It's going to be less appropriate. So it's not as if there's an off-the-shelf approach that can be used for all water systems in all regions. It's going to be different. But with that in mind, I'm not going to read through all this. It's going to need to look at what are the economic arrangements, what are the political and decision-making arrangements, and what are civil society arrangements, including non-governmental organisations. There's a whole list of things here. And probably on your slides it's not readable, but on the printouts, but we'll give you these slides afterwards anyway, so you can have access to all of this if you need it. And it's also all in the training manual, admittedly in English at the moment. So from an LME perspective, there's the whole LME modular approach, and one of those is all about governance. Interestingly, there's a lot of information out there on governance approaches for LMEs. There was a whole manual written about 7 or 8 years ago by experts from the University of Rhode Island in the US for UNGP, I think, around governance, and that can be made available. Certainly, it's not referenced in the slide, it's certainly referenced in the manual, in the TDA-SAT manual, along with a range of other documents that cover governance. So there's a lot of information out there, possibly a higher level than what we want here in terms of how you actually carry out a governance analysis. But equally, there are also 2 good examples, I think very good examples, of governance analysis carried out for LMEs. And one of these is the Yellow Sea. Under there, they've done a series of reports on the analysis of environmental status and trends for their projects, and volume 4 of that is a governance analysis. So it's actually something that can be taken off the shelf, and Mike could probably find that on the IWL website, and it can then be put onto the HCLME website and be made available to everybody. And more recently, the Caribbean Marine Ecosystems has done a fisheries ecosystem governance report for their TBA. So that's out there as well. So there are examples that can be taken to be looked at would inform this process, I think. So just some advice. Always use existing assessments. If there's information out there already, use it. From international regional organisations, from UNDP, World Bank, or regional development banks, from universities, research institutes, NGOs and private sector consultancies. There's really lots of information out there on governance. This is very regularly reported on. And try to go beyond the formal aspects of political and social interaction. Don't just try to describe the formal decision-making hierarchy. Find out where decisions are really made, by whom and why. So it's not so static, there's something dynamic about this. Maybe if you hire a consultant, get them to attend coordination meetings with key ministries or agencies in order to observe these dynamics. What are often referred to as the rules of the game, informal rules of the game. Another option, I don't know how successful it will be, but one of the people that gave me some of this information said, talk with in-house journalists. They've always got their ear to the door, so to speak, at key ministries, and to journalists who cover political and sectoral areas. There's a lot of information out there. And also identify long-term and forward staff members, people who have actually worked in this arena, interview them. Often this is where the real institutional memory is. They're the people that are going to have the knowledge of what is done, where and when. What's worked and what hasn't. So that's quite a quick presentation on governance. It's not really part of the formal TDA-SAP process in terms of training, because as I said, I think this is a specialist area that requires a specialist to undertake it. Okay, but it's worth having that short presentation just to make sure it's in people's minds.